Right.
Typically,
True.
forming a C Corp, S Corp, filing an annual report, on average, probably 30 minutes per state per entity. So if you have a handful of entities, it can quickly turn into hours or days of work. And then if you're servicing a full firm's worth of entities, it could be hundreds, if not several hundreds. So, we've certainly turned weeks of work into a few hours of work for folks, which is, huge operational leverage and cost efficiency.
Hey, everyone, listen, thanks for joining us on this week's Tax Rep Network podcast. I'm Eric Green. And so we have back with us two familiar faces, Paul Hamann from RC Reports and Frank Tumminello from FileForms. Now, I've had them both on individually, but there's actually a partnership that's rolled out. And I think I think it just makes sense. But I think that this is going to be really interesting, especially for the attorneys and accountants who listen to this program, because there's an opportunity here. So, with that sort of setting the stage, you know what? I can do this. So, RC Reports, Paul, you and I have done a bunch on the channel and webinars together. What RC Reports does is run basically reasonable comp reports, theoretically, mostly for S Corp owners. But if you have a 990, nonprofit or a C Corp, you really should have written, this is what the cases and the regs say. You need to have written documentation how you determine what reasonable compensation is. And that's what RC Reports does, and it does it amazingly well. And FileForms, which has sort of become my go-to for filing, setting up new entities, the annual filings. It tracks in the dashboard all the deadlines. It's really a terrific resource. So with that sort of as, kind of background for folks who maybe haven't heard or talked to you guys, again, I know why. I think I know why. Why does this partnership make sense?
Definitely. I could lead us off, Paul, and then maybe chime in thereafter. But file forms, we've been working hundreds of different professional services providers, helping them get into automated workflows around state compliance, specifically around everything from forming entities and then subsequently keeping those entities in good standing as those businesses operate, expand into new states, et cetera. So, great opportunity for folks serving various clients who either operate in one or multiple states to create a nice recurring revenue stream that's very passive, very scalable, very automated. But given the nature of these annual filings, it's a great opportunity to provide that value add service to clients. And then alongside LLCs converting to C Corps or S Corps, or even just S Corps forming naturally, I'll kick it over to Paul to chime in on how RC Reports really can provide a incremental revenue stream as well with the services his platform provides.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. It's good to see you again. And Eric, thank you as well for having me on and for the overview. With reasonable compensation from a strictly compliance standpoint, a lot of times it's just standalone. But what we've been finding from practitioners that they strongly want this as part of a workflow so that they can hit it as they're going through whatever workflow that might be. So if we kind of start at the beginning when you're becoming an S Corp, knowing what your reasonable comp is and having that documented as you're forming your S Corp makes perfect sense, which flows right through the files forms flow when you're creating that S Corp. So you have that documented from day one and have that in place, and then you add that into your flow each year with all the other compliance documentation required for your 1120S. And this does a couple of things for you as the practitioner. It gives you everything in one nice place to keep track of it, but it also gives you that annual annuity. Every time you run through these, the different compliance pieces for the S Corp, you're billing your client, and that just builds into your annual practice revenue.
Yeah, and let me interpret to the audience, because in my view, I'm kind of in the middle, right? So we have the client that comes to us. They're a single member LLC. How do I save money? And we can look at it and say, look, let's run a reasonable comp report, because I think doing some quick math, you would have significant savings as an S Corp. And so I'm going to go to RC Reports. We're going to run this, and maybe we're going to elect S status for them. Meanwhile, we're also looking at, have you filed your annual reports? Because we end up dealing a lot with the IRS, and it's a problem when the person who thinks they're an S Corp suddenly realizes they're a C Corp, or worse, they don't even have an entity because it was dissolved statutorily because they failed to file the annual reports. And so now we're trying to get it reinstated. They're going to spend a lot of money trying to fix this oversight. So I have found that I end up working with both systems. Like I'm in FileForms in terms of annual reporting or setting up the entity, resident agent, if statutory agent, if we need one. And then I'm running the reports out of RC Reports. What this does for an accountant, and yes, I'm speaking to the CPAs and the EAs and the tax preparers, you can actually help your client with all of the corporate formation. And if you're saying, well, I don't practice law, you don't have to. FileForms has an option where they will do it for you. They have attorneys, they have folks in every state, they do this. So you can actually, as a partner, make money by getting your clients into FileForms, having it done professionally and all of that. And then you normally go and say, well, I got to go to RC Reports, and now we can run the report, and maybe we're going to convert you to an S. The fact that you can now have both in one workflow and it on an annual basis. And I'm going to say something because we've gotten the comments on YouTube. Paul, you and I get this comment all the time on the webinars. So Frank, what we'll get is, Eric, I can't sell my client the report. They're not going to want to pay for it. And I'm just going to address this. You imbeciles. I'm kidding. But seriously, to me, in my mind, it's the old saying, nobody buys a drill because they want a drill. They buy the drill because they want the hole. You don't sell them the report. Nobody wants to pay for the report, no matter how much you're going to save them. You sell them the benefit. Look, you made $170,000 last year, single member LLC. What if I could get you $10,000 a year in tax savings? I've yet to meet the client who would say to me, hey, you know what, Eric? Donate it to the government. They need it more than I do. We probably do. But anyway, that aside, they're going to be like, how do I do that? Say, look, we have to run a reasonable comp report. It's going to cost you $750, whatever. But I'm betting your reasonable comp, I'm just guessing. No, truth is, I've already run it in RC Reports, so I already know roughly what it's going to show. It's going to probably come in at around 70,000. So I'm looking at 90,000 times 15.3% that I can save you. So there's 13.5. But look, you got to pay for the report every year. You're now an S Corp. So you're not going to save 13.5. You'll probably save about 10. But I'd rather you take that 10,000, put it in your profit sharing plan with an 8% return in 10 years. You'll be looking at, I don't know, $135,000, $140,000. Does that sound good? You don't sell them a report. Nobody wants to pay for the report. What they want is, wait a minute, I can get an extra 140,000 roughly, depending on the market in 10 years. Yes, sign me up for that. And so that's the approach here. The approach is, and by the way, if you're really smart, now you're going to start going through all your, you get RC Reports. You run all your LLCs through it. And now you start contacting each one of them. One, you're going to turn them from a $750, whatever you're charging for the single member LLC Schedule C 1040, to a $3,500 S Corp. They're going to be paying for the report. So the, I don't know, $1,800 or whatever I spend on RC Reports now becomes a $20,000, $30,000 revenue stream every single year because they got to run this every December. And you're saving the client money. And by the way, you've bulletproofed this issue for an audit. That would be a win-win-win in my book. You don't sell them the report. You sell them the benefit. All right. Enough said. So the partnership clearly makes sense, but can you walk us through how is this going to work in practice? Right. So do I go into FileForms? Do I go to RC Reports? Does it matter? How walk us through how this works?
Paul, you want to start this one?
So yeah, but it'll be a quick pass off to Frank. So what we've done is we've gotten together with FileForms and we've put a flow together within FileForms. So as you're going through this, you will be prompted or taken to RC Reports to get that piece of it done, then put back in the flow to finish up the rest of your compliance, and you'll have these reminders coming up each and every year.
And our RN effectively, you can go through your current client list, determine who has an LLC, who has an S corp, and really, even book a time with either of our teams to kind of go through that process and ultimately seek to present the opportunity that Eric just presented there to the LLC folks who could benefit from those tax savings. We can help them with the S election and ultimate the reasonable comp report. And the best part is going forward, we're going to be able to service the annual report filings. We're going to be able to operate as a registered agent in all the states companies operating in, foreign qualify them in new states, and elect a registered agent as they grow state to state, perhaps hiring remote employees. But going forward, it's really going to create a meaningful annuity type income stream when you encompass the registered agent, the annual report, and the reasonable comp report each year across all those clients that you do have in your network today. So it ends up being a really nice revenue generator, all while providing your clients savings. So really a win-win for all parties involved, which is really hard to beat.
Yeah, no. And just for the audience, and I'll put a link in the description. We're going to be doing a webinar on this on September 17th. All right. It's a free webinar to walk you through this because, one of the things, guys, that those of us who do a lot of speaking, you're all banging the drum, Joe Woodard, me, Dominique Molina, Adam Lean at CFO Project, you name it, about getting into advisory, right? This is the essence of advisory. So if you think about it, again, because I can see the hang up folks would have, like, well, I'm trying to sell something. No, you're going to the client saying, this is the stuff you need to take care of. All right. We can take care of this for you. All right. Basically, it's a holistic approach. We're not just knocking out a tax return. We're not just doing your bookkeeping. Right. And then later on, if you have a problem, come to us and say, well, we only did your bookkeeping. I don't know. We don't do that. I hope you had a lawyer doing that. No. The accounting or tax pro can now flow the entire thing. Even if you end up not wanting to do the return, we can make sure the annual filings are done. We can make sure your RC report, your reasonable comp report is done. All right. And all of your sales tax filings, all of that stuff. That is the holistic advisory approach. That's how you take that $2,500 tax client into a $10,000 a year. What does Don Brolin call it? Relationship pricing client. Okay. Because we're going to have a relationship. We're your pro, and we have the means. Thank you, FileForms, RCReports, and everybody else. Let's see how Grunt works the rest to literally automate this. So we are checking all the boxes all the time. You don't need to lose sleep about whether or not that report got sent. Your annual reports are up to date. It's all taken care of. And that, I'm just going to tell you, and I've done podcasts with Don Brolin. That approach is very attractive, especially to business clients. Wait a minute. In fact, when Don took this out to them, people's prices jumped fourfold. So she went to $750 a month, not $2,500 in tax season. Every client said the same thing. Said, wait a minute. So you're going to take care of everything, and I can call you whenever I need to, and I'm not going to get a separate bill? Nope. This is it. This is everything. Every single person signed up. You know why? Because now it's like a relief knowing that this is all being taken care of. So for those folks listening to this, if you haven't gone down this, first of all, go check out FileForms has amazing free stuff on their site. Lots of content. There's lots of educational material. I know I've pointed people to it, but you can sign up as a partner. It doesn't cost anything. All right. And again, you're doing the right thing by the client with RC reports now in that flow. You're going to be able to, one, easily maintain your S Corp folks properly. Two, convert those LLCs and C Corps to an S Corp when the time is right. And again, do right by the client, bulletproof the return in case of an audit for reasonable comp, all the rest of it. But also, for those of you who do 990s, nonprofits, there's a question on the return. Do you have written documentation to support the compensation taken by directors? I bet your software is defaulting to yes. How many of your clients actually have that? I bet none. So this is also an opportunity for you to sleep better at night, knowing you got the client to take care of this stuff. There's so many places I want to go with this. you already touched on this, but the benefits of the partnership, right? Of both, it sounds like simplification, right? Because it's part of one workflow. But also, Paul, did you say that they're going to get prompted about this, right? Or was it Frank? I don't remember who you mentioned. But let's say I'm using FileForms. I have this S Corp. I'm going to get prompted now, I don't know, November, December, to run the reasonable comp for, say, 2026. Right? That's part of the flow?
Certainly, the annual report filing will be prompted 100 days before any filing. So that should be a huge lift for folks who might have historically avoided doing that type of work or just didn't want to track it on their own. I could attest our technology will track that for you. So it really does create a recurring revenue stream that's quite passive and really no overhead for you as the provider. And it, to your point, creates a great annual engagement point with the client. It's a great touch to check in, provide them that reasonable comp report, get to know any updates in their business. So, not just kind of communicating with clients over tax season, but really building that advisory service over time is becoming more and more prevalent in kind of the CPA EA accounting community. So, Paul, any additional comments on that side?
Yeah, so for those that log into RC Reports directly, you can obviously run that at any time. But in the FileForms flow, it would make the most sense when you're doing your other filings, right? Depending on what state and what jurisdiction, when they come up, are they going to come up on the day you started? Are they going to come up at the end of the year? It just kind of depends on those. I would just include this in that. As long as you're doing this once a year, you're covered and you've got your update and you're compliant. If there's some reason to do it again at the end of the year, you can certainly jump directly into RC Reports, clone that report real quick and get a new update. Maybe something changes with your client, et cetera, where you want to do an update outside of when that annual filing comes up.
I was just going to ask about the value add, but it sounds like it's really the bundling. Anything else that am I missing?
And the time savings. Typically,
Right.
Forming a C Corp, S Corp, filing an annual report, on average, probably 30 minutes per state per entity. So if you have a handful of entities, it can quickly turn into hours or days of work. And then if you're servicing a full firm's worth of entities, it could be hundreds, if not several hundreds. So, we've certainly turned weeks of work into a few hours of work for folks, which is, huge operational leverage and cost efficiency. And, more and more as private equity is consuming CPA firms and investing in different accounting firms, they're looking for more passive recurring revenue. They're looking for more automated workflows. They're looking for more AI within the four walls of the firm. And this is really leaning into those trends, which is going to ultimately create more profit for you prior to a potential exit, and then more enterprise value created at that point of exit. So that's a big trend going on right now too that most folks can speak to.
Yeah, very true. And Eric, when you were talking about a couple of things, one is peace of mind for the client, right? Knowing that everything has been filed and taken care of. They don't need to think about it, right? You've shown them the value, the tax save. Then you move on to the tax preparer, CPA, EA, that has taken care of this. They're also looking for that same peace of mind in a flow, something that's going to remind them. They don't have to go out and spend a half hour doing each annual filing. They don't need to then pop into RC Reports and run that report and then put it all together in one place and check off their manual checklist, whatever it might be, to make sure they've hit all of those things, right? It's just all listed there. They can check through it, get it all done. That's their peace of mind as well. And then it builds in that additional cash flow. And as you said, when you're building value for your practice, if you are building that practice for exit, anything that's in the client advisory services section, that's a huge hit. That's a huge bump.
Yeah. And so just to summarize sort of the unique value, the ease of doing this. When I first started my law practice, you know how many corporations and then the S Corp filings, and then you have to make sure that the government got it because they seem to lose half of them. And the client didn't want to do the minutes and the annual things. And then the client would go off and then I'd hear about them when something went wrong. And, I wasn't, retained to do annual whatever follow up. And I had all these stock books when I merged, I had all these stock books in storage. I don't even know where these people are anymore. So there's the ease. It's just taken care of. And again, for those of you who've not signed up with FileForms, because I use FileForms, you log in dashboard. Here are all my entities, right? That in other words, that I've either filed or I'm an agent on or whatever. They're all there, right? It has the deadlines there. I get flagged, like Frank said, I get updated when there's a filing deadline. It's all right there. All right. You've got the fact that this is all now part of a flow. So like you said, Paul, the accountants who want a workflow for this, because especially with all the software and everything lends itself to a workflow, not being this disjointed bunch of things you need to do. So you've got the ease of it, I would call that. And frankly, the retention, because as I pitched, that reasonable comp, and look, if I run it for someone and the reasonable comp comes in and there are no savings, all right, maybe it's a one-off. But I've not found that. Generally speaking, there are savings for folks. And we're running that report every single year. And look, you can do this two ways. You either charge separately for the report, or what you're going to do is you're not going to charge $2,500 for an S Corp return. I'm charging $3,500 because the report is built. You have to do it as part of this. So the client doesn't even realize they're paying $1,000 for that report. All right. I think Dawn said she's got like 32. Well, that's $32,000 a year. Like my law partner is like, hey, if you can't point to the ROI on something, we don't want it. Right. That's the ROI on this. Plus the peace of mind. Everything's taken care of, bulletproof the audit, etc. I mean, we don't have to get into the horror story about Bob, who was a CPA who tried to get his clients to do this. They wouldn't do it, kept filing the returns anyway, and the government went after him. Frank, you missed out. It's a great story, thrilling and exciting at all the right moments. You can sit in on it some other time. Paul and I do it every single year, mostly to just scare the shit out of everybody. So for the folks listening, I have my thought. When you listen to this, get in front of your computer, go out to FileForms, sign up as a partner. All right. That should be an automatic for everybody. Do you have some other thoughts, Frank, Paul? What would you suggest to people who have listened to this and are like, yeah, okay, Eric, I see this. I get it.
My recommendation would be take a little exercise through your client list, really reflect on what you learned today, and kind of click through the names of your clients and see who might be a good candidate. And, if it's a long relationship or, even a new one, reaching out to them and having a conversation about this topic. Prove to yourself that this is an opportunity. Don't just take it from us. We have great client testimonials on our sites and, amazing supporters like Eric and his entire network. But this is a real opportunity, and it's really just taking action. And this is a great time of year prior to busy season, prior to the year-end rush, to really qualify those clients. So when you're in tax extension season in a few months, maybe this is a good topic to where comms are naturally happening in your normal workflows.
And I was just going to mention the same advice. Take a walk through your client list and see who it makes sense to convert. But in addition to that, you also have your S Corps that you're currently working with. And you may not be doing their state filings and other compliance work for them. So also looking at them and bringing them into that same flow, so that for a reasonable compensation standpoint, that report is in one or maybe multiple flows that your client is counting on, but is priced out in more of a package form. So if you're including it in your relationship pricing, it's already there. If you're putting it in your S Corp or 1120S package, it's already built in there. If you're putting it into your compliance flow in FileForms, it's already built in there. You're protecting both yourself and your client. You're getting that report done each and every year.
Right. So you've got your existing S Corps, C Corps, nonprofit 990s, right? In terms of getting that report done. Then you've got every single entity, single member LLC or Corp, who's taking care of the annual filings, right? All of that. And then you've got, I hope no one has this, but if you actually have any sole proprietors, yeah, get them set up as an LLC. That's just stupid at this point. I see them every now and then. It's a little nuts, but we do see it. But no, great opportunity. I think the partnership is very exciting. And in terms of getting in touch with you guys, I will put the links in the description to both FileForms as well as RC Reports. Go check those out if you haven't already. Also, I'm going to put the link for the September webinar that we're going to be doing. It's free of charge, so get continuing education credits, learn a little bit more about this. We can obviously go more in depth, and I think you're going to I hope what you see is a tremendous business opportunity. Yes, do things right by the client. Yeah, you're going to make money, but there's a real good chance to actually build out an entire workflow from an advisory perspective and just bring more value to the client, make more money doing it, and get everyone to sleep better at night. Cool.
Great advice, Eric. We've seen folks turn a single LLC relationship into several thousands of dollars just doing state filings in a value add manner while helping clients mitigate liability and stay active with the states they operate in. So, like I mentioned earlier, really a win-win for you, your clients, and all stakeholders.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. So guys, Frank, Paul, thank you for taking the time. Great having you as always. It's September 17th. We'll see everybody on the webinar. And thanks for listening in, and see you next week on the podcast.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Frank.